Indie answers question 5. What would you tell your younger writing self? So, uh, probably not that much to be honest with you, or quite a lot, depending on how you how general this is gonna get. So, for those of you that don't know, which is probably most, if not all of you, I have only really been writing for almost 9 years at this point. I don't know why I said, but only it's as in because it's not that long in the grand scheme of things. But for me, that's quite a long time. I'm only 23. That's like more than a third. That's like 40% of my life probably. Um, so yeah, what would I tell my younger writing self is it's quite a difficult question for me to just answer like off the cuff like I do in these videos. Probably to just chill and be patient is probably one of the biggest things that I would tell myself because I've already mentioned this in my last video, but I used to write books and try and get them published immediately. I'd say I'd tell my younger writing self, don't do that. That's not a good idea at all. That is in fact, that's a very bad idea because, of course, it just means that you're going to end up having to do more work later on, and deal with rejection unnecessarily. Now, there's nothing wrong with dealing with rejection as a writer. You're going to have to deal with it, but dealing with it unnecessarily for rough drafts when you should not be giving people your rough draft to begin with is a bit. It's not really something that you want to do, and it's not really all that enjoyable. Another thing I would tell my younger writing self is that basically just stop being such a fucking perfectionist. Because when I first started writing, I was a bit of a perfectionist. I wanted every single detail mapped out in my head before I even considered writing it. In one instance, and in some instances, I just winged it completely. So I guess actually no, not what I just said, but more be consistent in how you write. Like, there's nothing wrong with plotting some books and pantsing others, but just have a clear plan of which one you're going to do for each project instead of just opening up a Word document, deciding this needs a timeline or this doesn't need a timeline. I can just wing it or I can't just wing it, and then just, just going for it. Because I think going for it too soon, as much as writing is about practice, going for it too soon when you're trying to write something that other people will read, you run the risk of alienating your readers in the sense that, yes, you might get it, but have you thought about it in enough context that they get it? If it makes any sense. So say for instance you made a timeline like in your subconsciously in your head, but you didn't actually really explain it to the reader. Like, and they don't know how much time has passed since something, and you just expect them to figure out for themselves, or you give it to them in the form of exposition, or you just tell them like, oh, it's been a month, but you don't let them feel that it's been a month, that there hasn't been any changes to the characters. No one's hair looks any different. No one's physique is any different. No one's anything is any different, and there isn't any like sense of progression, and it doesn't mention what's happened over that past month. Another thing I would tell myself, which is quite, which is a bit of a problem for me for quite a while, still kind of is be more detailed. And when I say that, I mean in both descriptions and story, because my stories can be very bare bones. But mostly just in terms of descriptions, because when I first started writing, I was writing it was almost like I was writing a movie, not a book, which is fine. Like, if you want to be a screenwriter, if you start writing a book and you discover you want it to be a screenplay, or that you discover that you want to be a filmmaker or something, that's perfectly fine. But if you're trying to be a writer, like an author, even not a writer, they're also writers. If you're trying to be an author and you're doing that, then you might need to take a step back and think, am I relying on dialogue too much? Which is what I did too much. And granted, my book's now still quite dialogue heavy, I would say, but that's just my style, I think. I think it works. And I think it works and I like that I do that. But when I first started and it was no descriptions of the setting at all, just character describes the settings themselves, especially because I write in first person. That can be done as an internal, and it should be done as an internal dialogue. You don't have to spell it out for the audience. They're not idiots. They they can piece it together themselves without you being like, oh, it was dusty. It's like, well, if it's a desert, it's gonna be dusty. That's not a helpful description. Can you describe better? Like describe whether or not there's sand dune, whether or not it's what type of desert it is, what the expanse of the desert is like. Is it expansive? Is it not very expansive? Is it more like a beach? But you should really basically what I'm getting at is that I thought I needed to be more specific in my descriptions and a lot less general. And probably what I would say, final thing I would tell my younger writing self is you don't need to be in a rush to be published. You don't need this big thing, this big published work to say, I am a writer. You're a writer because you write. That's it. If you write and you've never published anything, but you still write stories, congrats, you're a writer. I didn't really get that when I first started. What I thought was to be a writer, I thought that you had to have a published work. I thought you had to be like many of my favorite authors like Neil Gaiman, Anthony Horowitz, uh, Paula Hawkins, and just a bunch of just just a published author. I thought that's what it took for you to be able to call yourself one. And because of that, I was constantly in a rush to get something out there. But you shouldn't. I feel like you shouldn't be in a rush to get your stories out there. Like, yes, you should still write with. If you want to publish, you should still someday you should still write with the intention. But if you're just starting out, don't think that. Don't go into it expecting to be published within a year of writing your first book, because it's probably not going to happen. At writing, as much as anything in the creative arts is a skill, you can't just pick it up. And yes, there's natural talent, but you can't just pick it up and decide, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to get published immediately, because or I should publish this immediately if you're doing what I do and you self-publish. Because I've gone down that route a little bit of self-publishing books that weren't ready, and it's not fun. You shouldn't do it. Um, you should make absolutely sure that your book is what you personally think is of a good standard for yourself. And actually, just sort of something else, final thing. Um, you should take other people's opinions into account when you ask a person to read your book, and if they tell you something you don't like, don't get offended by it, basically, because I used to get like that. I used to use my family as beta readers. I used to get offended when they said they didn't like a certain aspect of something, or they said it's not descriptive enough, or something along those lines, which actually helped me to make this video, to be quite honest, remembering what they told me. But if you don't listen to that and just go like, oh, fuck them, like I did when I first did it, when I first started writing, fuck them, this is great, you're not going to actually ever be able to see the issues with your own works. And believe me, there's going to be issues, regardless of how good of an author you are. There's always going to be issues that you can't see and other people can. So I just say to myself that you should really look into you should really ask for people's opinion more often, because I didn't really do that at all when I first started writing in the first place. And when you do, you should try and look at it as objective as possible. Which obviously it's not easy. You don't necessarily want someone telling you that what is effectively like like your child to you, or at least that's how I interpret my books, as being a piece of shit, you don't really want people to be telling you that, because imagine if you said that to someone's actual kid, it'd be pretty fucking mean. But or said or even if they gave constructive criticism, you'd feel a bit, oh no, they're perfect, how dare you. But you just got to take it with you just got to take it in and listen to what they say, and decide whether or not what they say is actually helpful to you, because sometimes it might just be a case of, well, I didn't like this part with the occult. Maybe they don't like the occult, maybe you do. It's nothing, there's no reason you should get rid of that. But if they tell you something more general, like, I didn't like I didn't find the villain particularly threatening, or I didn't find the protagonist very likable, and your intention is for the villain to be threatening and the protagonist to be likable. Sometimes you don't want that, but in rare cases of books. But if you are going for that, then you should listen to that, because if someone has a criticism about your characters, you should listen, because a book should be character first and everything else secondary. All right, so that was my just the answer to the question, what would I tell my younger writing self? Quite a lot more in this video than what I was expecting to say when I first started with it. But yeah, that is just what I'd say. I hope that this helps you, and anyone that's wanting to get into writing, or anyone that's already into writing. I hope that this helps, and that this is useful, and that it gives you like a general idea of what writing is like, and what self-publishing can be like. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for what to do for my next video, my next question, or just questions in general, please put them in the comments down below, or reply to my Instagram or Twitter posts on these. And I will see you in the next one. And as always, write on.